May the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. So I get a little worried when there are clergy sitting behind me because I actually don't know what they're doing back there. But it is a great pleasure to be with you here this morning and to share in this wonderful time of reception for Lisa, and to be in the same place and to be able to reflect on these readings that we have today. The gospel reading today puts us in the vicinity of a place called Caesarea Philippi. Now, Caesarea Philippi it's a bit to the north of the Sea of Galilee. So it's in the general area where Jesus and his disciples had been wandering in the Gospel of Mark. And when they're doing this, they go through all these villages, and Jesus is teaching and he is healing, and the disciples are following him, and they're learning all about what Jesus is about. And then in today's reading, they go to Caesarea Philippi, which is an amazing place. Now, I was in Caesarea Philippi about 7 years ago on a pilgrimage into the Holy Land. And we stopped there, and it really made me think about this particular story. Caesarea Philippi is a beautiful place. There are springs of fresh water that rise up from that place that eventually flow into the Sea of Galilee, which is the beginning then of the River Jordan. And the water is so clear, and it is, you want to drink it because it is so clear. And in this place, in the time of Jesus, there had been three centuries of people building this amazing palace. And in that palace, they had these alcoves, and the alcoves were an entire pantheon to the gods. And so it's just astonishing. Now you just see the ruins of it, or you get a hint of it. But it was amazing. The pantheon of the gods, Pan and all the others. So when Jesus is walking with his disciples around that area, and he stops outside of Caesarea Philippi, he does so with a purpose. And his purpose is to ask the question, who do people say that I am? Here you are. Here's all the pantheons of the gods. Who do people say that I am? And then, of course, they answer Elijah, one of the prophets. And then he goes deeper. And he says, yes, but who do you say that I am? We get Peter's reply, because Peter always has a very quick reply, because that's the way Peter is. But that question, who do you say that I am, is the one that echoes throughout the following centuries. Who do we say Jesus is? That question depends a lot on each one of us, on our personalities, our backgrounds, our experiences. For some may answer, you are the teacher, you are the rabbi, you are the prophet, you are the companion, you are the friend, you are the healer. All of these and more are different names by which we identify with Jesus. Who do you say that I am? And then, of course, the question becomes, once we have a sense of our connection with Jesus, with a sense of his identity, then what do we do about it? That has been, again, the question for the centuries. That question is not new. It's very old. What do we do about it? After the Pentecost experience in Jerusalem, remember the big dramatic event? The tongues of fire, everybody's speaking in different tongues, and it's very dramatic, it's huge. After that happens in Jerusalem, we are told that 3,000 people are baptized. 3,000 people are baptized following this big dramatic event. And then Acts chapter 2, verse 42, they say, okay, we have identified ourselves as followers of Jesus. We are part of the Jesus movement. Now what? Acts 2:42 says, you are to continue in the apostles' teaching and fellowship, in the breaking of bread, and in the prayers. Does that sound familiar to you? Look on page 5 of your bulletin. Look on page 5 of your bulletin. Tell me when you see it. Do you see it? Okay. It's that first question that you are asked. Will you continue in the apostles' teaching and fellowship, in the breaking of bread, and in the prayers? What they were being told, what these very earliest followers of Jesus are being told, is there are some basic things that you need to do to ground yourselves as followers of Jesus. You continue in the apostles' teaching. What does that mean? What were the apostles teaching about? They were teaching about the resurrection. They were teaching about faith and hope and love. They were teaching about how you interact with the world, right? Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the sick in prison, and welcome the stranger. Those are the apostles' teaching. So they're to ground themselves in that. And then, fellowship. Teaching and fellowship. When I say fellowship, what do you think about?
Coffee hour.
Yep. Thank you, Tina. Coffee hour. Coffee hour is what everybody thinks about. But coffee hour is more than just, let me go have a cup of coffee before I go home, because that's what you do when you go to church. Coffee hour is about fellowship. It's about the deeper meaning of what it means to engage with another person, to hear a story, to find out about their lives, to connect deeper as people who are part of a gathered community. That is fellowship. Teaching and fellowship. And then we go to breaking of the bread. What do you think about?
Communion.
That's what you're thinking about, right? Mm-hmm. When they were talking about it, they were talking about something a little bit bigger than that. Okay, so when we come in here and we celebrate the Eucharist, right? We have that wafer, and that wafer is perfectly scored, right? And if I break it just right, it looks really good. Right? I'm not sure that it tastes that great. But what they were really talking about was that breaking of bread. Jesus says he's the bread of life, and that bread that is broken is crumbly. It's messy. It's something that you grab a hold, you grab a chunk, and you pass it on to the next person. That bread of life that we break together is not perfect. It's not scored. It's just life. That breaking of bread. And when we do that, we are sharing in life as it really is. Teaching, fellowship, breaking of bread. and the prayers. 2,000 years ago, the world was a mess. It was a true mess. Now, the world is a mess. It is a true mess. And we, as disciples of Jesus, as followers in the Jesus movement, are called upon to be the prayerful presence in the world. We are called upon to pray wholeheartedly, not just for each other in this little space and time, but for the needs of the broader world. For an end to world war, an end to violence, right? For people who are suffering, for those who are hungry, for people who are lost and lonely, for creation. And those prayers are to be met with action. But our prayerful presence, we have to hold that space. We have to make that difference. Teaching, fellowship, breaking of bread, and prayers. And that's just the first question in the baptismal covenant. If you're ever looking for something to keep you busy, look at all the questions. We have a roadmap for how we are to live our lives as followers of Jesus. We know what we need to do. We know who we need to be. God will continue to call us every single day into being the people that God needs us to be in this world. It's up to us as to whether we respond or not. We say the baptismal covenant every time I come to visit. And part of that is because it is when we do Episcopal acts, right? And today we are going to receive Lisa Marisol, into this group. Now you have already received her with your hearts. I'm receiving her in an official act. And for Lisa, what she needs to know is that as she strives to live into her baptismal covenant, she is surrounded by people who are striving to do the same and will support her in her journey. So now I'm going to invite you to that renewal of our baptismal covenant. Keep an eye on all the questions. And remember, there's plenty of work for you to do. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.